Yo, what is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the first episode of Xbox Chaturdays for 2021. Let us go. How is everyone doing? First off, thanks so much for joining me. I know we took a few weeks off for the holidays to kind of rest and recharge, and now I'm back in the saddle, ready for action, ready to talk some Xbox after the holidays. We got a pretty cool show lined up. No guest today, but it's going to be me talking about my impressions of the PS5 launch versus the Xbox Series X launch. I've spent several weeks with both of those, so I'll be talking about kind of how I feel overall about the launches, the games, everything as a package with those consoles. I'm also going to be talking about some Xbox game rumors that have been circulating. Tis the season for rumors. There's so many rumors circulating right now about everything. So that's what happens when there's slow news. And then I'll be kind of opening it up to any questions about the medium. I've had multiple interviews now, and I've had some kind of hands-off time with the game as well. So if there's anything about the medium you're curious about, I'll be giving my overall impressions, what I'm expecting to see from that, and then I'll kind of open it up to questions as well. And then anything else that comes up in the chat, Xbox related. It's been a couple weeks, so we have a bunch to talk about. But thanks to everyone who's watching live. If you're watching after the fact, we do this every Saturday morning-ish, 12 p.m. Eastern time if you want to tune in. And Mr. Joanna Dark's in the chat, Sergeant Rake, Cinedex, Binyabik, Colin. We got a good squad right out of the gate. So again, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm excited to hang out, and I'm excited to dive in. So we're going to be playing some Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls Remastered, if you will. So I thought for funsies, I'll let the chat kind of decide what the name of. Oops. Got my mic going in the back. Hopefully there wasn't an echo. We'll let the chat decide the name of our hero in this Dark Souls playthrough. And then while we're doing that, I'll kind of dive into the biggest topic of the show today is going to be the PS5 versus Xbox Series X. Fanboys, watch out. It's going to get spicy in here. No, but seriously, I managed to do the impossible over the holiday break, and I managed to track down the elusive PS5 Digital Edition. Which I was excited about. It took me about an hour checking out at Best Buy. Best Buy was doing like a staggered release thing. So every few minutes they were releasing small batches of these consoles. So I waited in queue for a while, was smashing add to cart, just had 3 tabs open trying to get one. I finally got it in my cart, and then it no joke had me select a pickup store, like where I was going to get the console, because they weren't shipping them. 50 times, at least 50 times. Add to cart. This is unavailable. Pick up at store. This store doesn't have it. Pick up at this store. This store doesn't have it. And it would just recycle the same list of like 8 stores over and over and over until eventually went through, got it, and picked up my PS5 the next week. So I've had several weeks. I got the Series X at launch. So I've had that since launch, and I've had the PS5 for a few weeks now. So I have some thoughts. I have obviously, you guys know I'm a big Xbox boy, big Xbox lad. But there's some things objectively that the PS5 is doing better right now in terms of like the overall launch, the overall quote unquote next gen experience. Just to put it simply, to start, the PS5, in my opinion, did deliver a better quote unquote next gen launch. In terms of the new features, it felt like when you got a new Nintendo console, albeit, maybe a little gimmicky with like the DualSense and like Astro's Playroom. But there was this kind of exciting sense of like new tech, new features, new dashboard, new games. So from my experience between the Xbox Series X and PS5, objectively, there's a little more excitement with the PS5 because there was some new stuff going on. Astro's Playroom was the closest thing I've ever seen anyone get to delivering like a phenomenal Nintendo platformer outside of Nintendo, obviously. So that was huge. I got my first platinum, y'all. I platinumed Astro's Playroom. So guess what? Checkmate, PS fanboys. You can't ever criticize me because I got a platinum trophy. So I don't know. If anyone in the chat has both, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. But another amazing feature that the PS5 has that I wish the Xbox had, and I didn't even really know about this feature until I got the console hands-on, but you can screen share from a party. So you can be in a party with your friends, playing, like we've been playing Demon Souls Remastered. My coworker Samuel Tolbert and I have been playing. So we were playing, and I was kind of stuck, and he's like, "All right, screen share with me." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Screen share?" He's like, "All right, go in the party, hit screen share, and then I'll join you." So you do that. You literally hit a button, go into the party, hit screen share. 3 seconds later, he's watching my feed in real time. He can minimize that, set it off to the side of his screen and watch me. And he's able to, while he's playing the game or playing a different game, watch me and give me tips on like where to go and what to do. And it's super seamless. And you can pop in and out of that screen share. So that feature is huge. I would love to see Xbox have an equivalent to that, because it was insane. It's really cool. And that is another example of like a really great next gen feature. I know Xbox is kind of, they're trying to bridge that gap, and we're not going for that full next gen approach, which is fine. I've still played my Xbox Series X more than my PS5. There's just been a few little things that I really wish Xbox would adapt. And then super chat hype right out the gate. RA89s, CES 21. Should we expect something? You should expect a lot of accessories. Obviously that's going to be a big tech event. In terms of like Xbox though, I wouldn't expect any big first party, any big news from Microsoft itself, but you'll see a bunch of accessories. You'll see a bunch of new tech, it's going to be mostly PC focused, is what I imagine at least. All right, let me catch up on oh dang, another super chat hype. Harpire Dawns. You think the KFC console will deliver a crisp gaming experience? Not only will it deliver a crisp gaming experience, it'll deliver on years of seasoned gaming experience. Terrible. But yeah, let's create our character in Dark Souls. Do we got any names in the chat here? I don't see any names. Hiro Ichiban. All right, I see what Mayo Caliente. Oh yeah, I like that. Enter character name. Ichiban Mayo will be our character's name in Dark Souls Remastered. So another big issue with the Series X for me right now, I'm a video guy, obviously, but the captures on Xbox right now are absolutely broken. They are terrible. I don't understand what is going on. This wasn't a new UI experience. This wasn't a new OS. It's continuing the same OS from the previous gen, but captures on the Series X have been absolutely garbage. It's really upsetting. It's super annoying. Half the time I go to edit a clip, it crashes to the dashboard. I have to like try to trim and export clips like 3 to 4 times before they work, and I don't understand. I know they've talked about a fix coming, but that little detail in particular is just really annoying, because we've had, a decade almost of this kind of like social focused, sharing focused kind of these platforms with PS4 and Xbox One, and for that basic feature to be so broken at launch is super annoying to me. Again, I probably rely on captures and video stuff a little bit more than the average person, but that little detail is really annoying me. And I was hoping it would be addressed by now, but it's not. HDR is absolutely terrible. Like the video quality when you record a clip in HDR is god awful. The clip quality in general is really bad. You can see a lot of artifacting, a ton of artifacting, and I don't know. I'm probably a little bit more nitpicky than most, but it's annoying. It's really annoying. Oh, who else we got in the chat? Mojo Blues, Jay Corden. We got some channel members. Those sexy folks in green there. Again, thanks for all the support. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the the memberships. That goes a long way. It means a lot to me and the channel and the growth and all that financial jazz that, again, I always joke about our corporate overlords, but that's the reality. That's the name of the game here. Mr. Joanna Dark, I have not tried Miles Morales or Sackboy Adventures, but I've had several people tell me that Sackboy Adventures is like the standout game on PS5 right now, which is exciting, because honestly, the reason I bought a PS3 back in the day was for Little Big Planet. I'm a big platformer fan. I was a big fan of that game and the creativity around that. So I was cautiously optimistic about that one because it took away all the creativity and just basically gave you a stylized platformer, which looked cool, but I wasn't sure how that would deliver as someone who is a huge fan of the previous games. Well, all right, so we're going to make ourselves a, what do we got here? We're going to be a pyromancer because pyromancers are broken. We're going to take the master key so I don't have to backtrack as much. We're going to be a thick boy? Tiny head boy. Well, we're going to be a tiny head boy. Face. Oof. Oof. Oh, yeah, some of these faces are truly special. Here we go. The palest one is probably the closest to me, so let's do that. Dragon Scholar. Dragon Scholar hair. Look at these. Look at these. Look at these graphics. Look at these graphics. Let's get a sexy bowl cut going on. All right, color. There we go. Looking really good. Boom, beautiful. Yes, let's start the game with this character. Okay, so Jay Corden asked Miles, with that email put out, email put out by Game Pass, I assume is what you mean. What's the game that's returning? Any ideas? A lot of people are speculating it's probably going to be a Bethesda-related title. Fallout 4 is the one I've seen kind of circulating a bit. I haven't seen anything in particular, to be honest. It could be anything. There's been a lot of big games cycling in and out of Game Pass. It would be interesting if it was something big like Red Dead Redemption 2, because it would kind of set this precedent of, you know, that game was only in Game Pass for like probably one of the briefest amounts of time of any game because it's such a high profile game. And so maybe that sets this precedence that, you know, there is a ton of value even for big publishers to put big games into Game Pass, because maybe they saw a huge spike in players for their online when it was in Game Pass, and then that dipped. And so maybe now that precedent says, okay, Game Pass as a service adds a ton of value, even for Rockstar, even for the people who make arguably the biggest games of all time. It sets a precedent and it adds value. So that would be my guess if they were going to actually like do this email teaser, is it's probably going to be something from Bethesda, because that's big and that's a big push for them in Game Pass, or it's going to be something like Red Dead Redemption 2. What else we got here? Miles, Mr. Joanna Dark, the goat in this chat right now, says, Miles, you the man, gonna make you bigger than Jez. I imagine, you know, Jez and I, even though he ditched me here on the show. No hard feelings, Jez, but I like to imagine that we're the dynamic duo here. Windows Central Gaming Worldwide, as we call it. I'm repping the USA, he repping the UK, and together we're uniting the world. Is that too big of a statement? Anthony in the mix, my boy Anthony, my boy Jonathan. Thanks for joining us on this blessed Saturday morning. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, let me know in the chat. Slap a comment, slap a, I don't know, dab, whatever you want. Again, this is first episode of 2021. Took a couple weeks off, so we got to get people back in the habit of this being an every week thing. Mythic Marty says, Dark Souls. Miles is a person of fine taste. You know, the only people who don't like Dark Souls are people who do have bad taste. You're right. You are. No, I'm just kidding. I get it. I don't know if I told this story already, but I showed my wife Dark Souls because I've been trying to like introduce her to more games recently, just because we've been playing more stuff together and I'm trying to find more co-op games we can play. So I introduced her to Dark Souls Remastered, and she was not a fan. She got really mad because I was letting her play. Part of the experience is just diving in and just experiencing all the nonsense. So the part in the very beginning that we're going to see here, where you're climbing up the stairs and that boulder comes down and smacks you, I'm just, passive, watching her on the couch, sitting. And then she climbs up the stairs, gets blasted by the boulder, and turns over to me and says, why didn't you tell me that was going to happen? I'm like, I can't. That's part of the experience. That's part of what Dark Souls is, being hyper aware of your surroundings, being hyper aware of everything that's going on. So that way you take each situation cautiously. So she was a little upset. And then she got to the Demon King, died, and she's like, okay, I don't like this game. It's like, that's fine. You gave it a fair shake. You gave it a fair shot. That's all I can ask. And so we moved on. We've been playing a lot of State of Decay 2. Oh, so much love in the chat here. So Slacker, Colin, Mythic Marty, Mr. Joanna Dark, a lot of new people. A lot of new. Mr. Joanna Dark is not new. He's again one of the goats in this chat. But I've seen some new names cycle in, or at least some more active names when it comes to the chat, which is awesome to see. So yeah, let's dive back. We'll dive back into kind of general comparisons between the PS5, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series X backwards compatibility, and just the overall user experience, in my opinion, is way better. PS5 is cool. Like I said, it does deliver a better next gen experience, but the backwards compatibility, the ease of access, having everything accessible and ready to go on the Series X has been so much better than PS5. PS5 is a little weird in that they are really pushing that next gen, and although there is backwards compatibility, it's not nearly on the same level as Xbox. Auto HDR is a huge game changer. It's so cool being able to replay some of these old games, especially if they have an uncapped frame rate and you get to play them in 60 FPS. And then having the auto HDR, like I went back and played Sekiro, which had an uncapped frame rate. So playing that in 60 FPS with HDR compared to 30-ish FPS and sometimes lower was huge. I stopped playing Sekiro initially, not necessarily because of the poor performance, because the game is brutal as hell and makes Dark Souls seem easy. But I blanked here for a second. But yeah, those kind of features, that focus on backwards compatibility and increasing the scale of existing games looking and running better, like that has been like the biggest success of Xbox's launch, is that your library is not only not forgotten, but it's improved in huge ways. And so that's been huge. This is in terms of like a launch. And when the Xbox One came out, I was playing Crimson Dragon and Dead Rising 3 and Rise until my eyes bled, because that's all there were. That's all there was. Those games. I was grinding them not necessarily because I loved those games. Granted, they were pretty good. But because that's all I had. I didn't have the option to go back and play Sekiro or Dark Souls 1 Enhanced. So that in general has been really, really cool. And I think Xbox nailed that. So it's, again, I don't want people to think that I'm saying, oh, PS5 is better, Xbox sucks. PS5 crushed the Xbox Series X launch. They both have issues in different ways, for sure. My PS5 fan is super loud, and it's, okay, super loud. It's loud. Like my Xbox Series X is silent, totally silent. My PS5, when I turn it on, has a constant clicking. Like I can hear it. Like, and again, I'm kind of an audiophile. I'm kind of a spaz when it comes to specific sounds. So that kind of stuff in general just annoys me. Like it's hard for me to tune that out. But that is one big detail that I've noticed with the PS5, at least, is that the fan noise is not loud by previous gen comparisons, but it is much, much louder than the Series X. So I've also had issues with PS5 coming out of its rest state. Like it just won't, it'll hard lock and it'll do like a restart. Again, I've had similar issues with the Series X as well. So neither platform right now is kind of exempt from the issues of the quick boot. It seems like both are struggling to find a good solution to the quick boot. But what else? Oh yeah, quick resume has been, I honestly haven't been using it because it's been so hit and miss that I can't trust quick resume as it stands to work properly. Some games don't support it, other games just close. It's been kind of poopy, which sucks, because that was one of the big next gen features for Xbox, was the auto HDR and the quick resume. And so it's been annoying that the quick resume's a little finicky. All right, Faisal007 super chat hype. Stay safe. What do you think of the medium gameplay? I'm gonna dive into that deeper towards the end. because that's a segment of the show. So I'll be diving deep into what I think of the medium gameplay towards the end. But overall, I'm excited. I'm a huge Silent Hill fan. Some people are going to be upset about the fixed camera angles, and I think that's going to be that was a risky move on their part, because I think that's going to be the biggest turnoff for a lot of players, are those kind of old school fixed camera angles. Another super chat from Mr. Joanna Dark. Dang, he loves coming in hot and heavy. Miles, I only played Sekiro and made it to like the third to last boss. I always wanted to get into a Souls game. Have any advice? Sekiro is very different from most Souls games. Like the overall formula is similar, but Sekiro is more about learning how to parry, using your kind of ninja abilities and understanding the weaknesses. Sekiro has kind of like a Mega Man formula. So every single boss has some really, really significant weakness. And if you don't know that weakness going into the fight is brutal. The fight is a gauntlet of you just praying that you can finish it. But if you know the weakness, it makes it so much easier. So, and thankfully they kind of project it really obviously. So there's a boss where you see this guy sitting on the ground next to a dead horse right outside the boss room, and he's like, no, the fireworks scared you, no. And he's basically talking about how the loud noises and fireworks spooked the horse, and that's what caused the horse to die. And so that next boss is this guy with a giant spear riding on the back of a horse. So if you don't really know about the firecrackers, which you can throw on the ground in front of the horse, he'll rear up, and then you can smack the boss a bunch of times, and you have like this 5-second window of stun. If you don't know about that, the fight is super hard. That fight is super, super hard. But if you do know about that little tip, it makes the fight really not easy, but doable, manageable. And that's the whole thing with that game in particular, is it's more about figuring out the Mega Man level weakness of that boss with your gadgets. Dark Souls in general, I would say the biggest tip early on if you're new to Dark Souls is just take it slow. Dark Souls has this reputation for being brutal and being super difficult, and I mean that's realistically what it is and what they're selling with this. But a lot of that comes to just not knowing what's going on. Like the first time you encounter something, you probably won't know what to do. And so a lot of Dark Souls is a learning experience. They want you to come in, they want you to fail, and they want you to figure out why did I fail? And so a lot of it is like understanding the environments, understanding your enemies, and then taking it slow. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's my best advice, is just take it slow, and you have to be patient because it's brutal. It's brutal. The games are brutal. Like I said, my wife had never played it. She had no idea what was going on, and she got to that boss, died in like 2 hits, and was like, "What? This is the game? No, thank you." And that's where a lot of people see that. They get to like a ridiculous boss, die, and see like, this is stupid. This isn't fair. But really, it's fair, but it also requires a lot more from the player. Oh my god. It requires a certain level of kind of like investment from the player to understand the world. Because when it comes to world design and boss design and character, like cryptic storytelling, in my opinion, the Souls games deliver some of the best just RPG worlds of all time. Unmatched. And a lot of that gets overshadowed because of it's super hard. It's the Dark Souls of Dark Souls of Dark Souls. And a lot of people just, the memes, the hardcore memes, and the game being super hard as a meme kind of killed its accessibility for a lot of people, and it became this edgelord thing. Again, I'm always talking about edgelords on this podcast, but a lot of edgelords embraced that, and they said that you suck if you don't play Dark Souls, and it's kind of stupid. But all right, let me catch up on chat here. Colin says, "Hey Miles, what are you most excited for this year?" At this point, and this is going to be I'm probably going to be like one of 3 people in the world that ever say this, but the Evil Dead game, let's go. That was probably my most hype moment at the Game Awards, was the announcement of the Evil Dead game. I was like, what is happening? Why is this happening? But I'm here for it. Let's go. Again, probably one of the only people in the world who's going to tell you that is their most anticipated game of 2021. But hey, to each their own, and that's fine. We don't all have to be hyped about the same things here. Snowdragon says, should I spend the money to upgrade my sound receiver to have HDMI 2.1 inputs? I mean, 2.1 is gonna become the standard. Right now, it kind of sucks. Like I'm waiting for a 2.1 monitor because in my space, I only have so much room, and so a lot of the stuff I've seen with HDMI 2.1 is like a 55 to 70 inch TV, and I just can't use that. So I can't get 4K 120 FPS in my space right now just because of like space limitations. So I want to see some more monitors incorporate 2.1. I hope 2.1 also alleviates some of the issues with audio delay via HDMI, because that's pretty much what killed rhythm games last gen, was the super delayed audio from HDMI. So I don't know specifically, but I hope that HDMI 2.1 has less latency for audio. Sites, sorry if I butchered that, asks, how is the performance of the medium on Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S? We don't know yet, unfortunately. I've had interviews with the team, and I've asked those kind of questions, and they are saying that it's going to be basically a matter of resolution for the difference. I've heard that both will support kind of ray tracing. I imagine it'll be 4K 30 on the Series X and probably 1080 30 on the Series S, from what I've gathered. But again, we haven't seen it in action. When I did my preview event, it was 4K 30 gameplay captured and streamed by the developers. So from their PC, they were doing 4K 30, which makes me believe that I don't think there will be a 60 FPS option whatsoever on really either. I mean, maybe on PC, but the fact that they were showing us 4K 30 on their dev rig does not give me hope that we're gonna have a 60 FPS mode, which kind of sucks to hear, but I understand the technical limitations of that, because you have to think about the dual rendering system. So you have two worlds being rendered simultaneously. So they could have it in, like, when you're in a single world, 60 FPS, and I'm sure the engine would support that fully. But imagine how jarring that would be, going from 60 FPS when you're in a single world to half 30 FPS when you're doing the dual render way. Because as it stands, there's just they cannot give you 60 FPS on two different worlds simultaneously. So I think they just made some concessions and said, all right, we're gonna make this 30 FPS across the board, so that way it's not super jarring when you dive in. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see a 60 FPS mode. So F's in the chat if you're a 60 FPS purist. And again, sorry, catching up on all the chat here. Appreciate all the questions. Appreciate y'all interacting. Mr. Joanna Dark, also a man of taste, loves Evil Dead. Love to hear it. Binyabik says, just uninstall Dark Souls and play something else, is his best advice for the oops, gotta equip some stuff here for the franchise. Harsh, bro, harsh. I just got a shield they're gonna give me. Okay, hold on. Well, your boy's gonna be going, what's up? Where'd he go? You scared? You scared of this dual wielding shield action? Did he just give up on life, I guess? Archer's just like, I'm gone. All right, hand axe, shield. Ooh, Jans Hamdi says, hello, friends. I am from Morocco, and I'm a new subscriber. Well, thanks. Thanks for the sub. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks for representing Morocco in the chat. That's rad to see. I think you're the first person I've seen so far with the Morocco landmark. So awesome. Sergeant Rake says, hello from Canada. And like I said, Windows Central Gaming worldwide. We're about tearing down boundaries and uniting gamers across the globe. Too corny? Too much? No? We have fun. We have fun here. Okay, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else critical that haven't touched on between the PS5 and Series X, kind of oh, general impressions and all that good stuff. I don't really think so. I think that I've touched on all the main things that I want to touch on. I'll be doing a video here in the near future breaking down features that are on PlayStation 5 and Steam that are not on Xbox that really need to come to Xbox. So if you want some kind of more curated, focused content on that, I'll be doing like, I think it'll be about 4 to 5 things total. 4 to 5 big, like huge features that PlayStation and Steam have that Xbox doesn't have. And that Xbox can and should have. So I'm excited about that because, you know, now that I've seen the full spread, now that I have a gaming PC, I have a PS5, I have the Series X, I have the Switch, I have the kind of the full gambit of the current gen landscape. So yeah, I have a good idea of who's doing what. Everybody is doing stuff that's really cool. Xbox Game Pass and Xbox services and Xbox's kind of consumer focused model, in my opinion, makes it really hard for me to buy PS5 games at $70. I bought Demon Souls, but looking at the future slate, like I want to play Returnal, but God, I don't want to pay $70 for Returnal. I don't know that Returnal is going to fully deliver. It looks cool. I hope it does. But yeah, that's steep, and Game Pass has kind of spoiled me because, you know, a lot of the big Xbox games are all first-party Xbox games are launching into Game Pass. So when I look at like a cool exclusive, I don't really have to think like, oh man, do I want to pay 60, 70 bucks? Can just play it. Somebody was asking about that. Oh, Jay Corden asked, do you like the PS5 controller? Yes, actually, that is a big thing I want to touch on. I really like the PS5 controller. I think the DualSense is awesome. I really wish Sony would just quit being so spiteful and just embrace the stick layout, the true, correct, proper stick layout. But outside of that, the DualSense is really cool. The triggers. The only game that I've really seen utilize them really well is Astro's Playroom, but that's a giant tech demo of, hey, this is what this controller can do. And everything in there is really cool. I'm a sucker for little details and little pieces that add a level of immersion to the experience, and the DualSense is all about that. It's kind of like the Joy-Cons. If you've used the Joy-Cons, the HD Rumble, like there's a ton of tiny little details and vibrations. So when you're rolling through a crate in Demon Souls, for example, you get the initial impact, the doof, like this deep rumble, and then as you hit the ground and roll, you get a lighter rumble. So there's a lot of, like, depending on what the developer does with it, there's a ton of little details. Oh, there's that bolt I was talking about. So the controller, and you've probably seen the patents going around from Xbox, and now Xbox is surveying people saying, hey, do you want these features? So I'm sure it's something that Xbox was maybe initially thinking about. And now that PS5 definitely has it and games are definitely using it, I think it will be a lot more widespread. Because you look at last gen, Xbox had those, like the rumble triggers. So you had rumble in the triggers that was kind of like a new feature. Most games didn't use it though. Like you can count on one hand the number of games that really utilized it well. Which sucks because that feature is really cool. And games like State of Decay 2 use it in really interesting ways. So obviously when you're driving a car, the different terrain rumbles differently. When you hit things, it rumbles differently. One of my favorite little details is for every single gun, when you're loading the chamber, you feel the little click in the triggers, like a really minor, like tink, 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 tink. And when they cock it back, you get like a more aggressive so little details like that, I think are really cool. And I think, you know, it adds to the overall experience. But nobody used it on Xbox, and I think that's why Xbox didn't launch with it. But now that PS5 is launching with it, and now that, you know, PS5 is the industry leader, whether we like it or not, that's kind of just the reality of it. So it'll automatically get more support by default. I would love to see Xbox have like an equivalent controller that really delivers on those features. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not calling you out, Arshad. I just have this made me laugh. I was scanning the chat and I just see, is Xbox butter? And I was like, is Xbox butter? But you're asking is Xbox better than the PS5? I think long term, the Series X will be a better machine than the PS5. I mean, just you look at the specs on paper, and there's despite what people are saying about the dev kit for the PS5 versus the Xbox, there's just realistically no way that the PS5 is a better technically performing console. Again, it'll all come down to games, and that's going to be the biggest thing people fight over online is, oh, Xbox has a powerful machine, but its games are trash, or whatever people want to say. So ultimately, the games are going to decide that. So that's why I said earlier in the show that the PS5 had a better next gen launch, because Demon Souls and Astro's Playroom have been better. Like Xbox hasn't had a next gen equivalent to that yet. Despite things like Hive Busters looking amazing and looking really great, Xbox hasn't had a true next gen answer to those types of games so far, and that's going to be that's Xbox's biggest issue, and that's Xbox's biggest criticism from a lot of non-Xbox players is Xbox or PlayStation has better games. I still have played my Series X way more than I played my PS5. But I really want Xbox to get to that point where that's no longer the biggest issue for them. Because again, as whatever as this is to say, if you have the world's most powerful console, but you don't have the best games, then no matter what you do, people are going to give you shit, realistically. And that's where Xbox is at right now. All right. Okay, John asked, did you talk about the controller? Yeah, touched on that a little bit. What else here? Mr. Joanna Dark says, what I love about Xbox is cloud streaming. Being able to play in my bed on my Note 20 Ultra is awesome. Yeah, in terms of like the overall ecosystem that Xbox is building towards right now, I think it's going to be incredible. Like having the seamless transition from Xbox to PC to your phone, having all of that work flawlessly and seamlessly. I think when that fully hits its stride is going to be unbeatable, and that's going to be a huge selling point for Xbox as an ecosystem, because you're going to be able to hit up your buddy and say, yo, you want to play Halo? He doesn't have an Xbox, but he has a phone, so he's going to jump on his phone or his tablet and he's going to play Halo Infinite with you. And though, like, once that hits, I think Xbox isn't quite there, and I think realistically at this point, with the way COVID kind of delayed a lot of things and the way 2020 was, I think Xbox's goal probably right now is to get this generation of Xbox by the launch of Halo Infinite fully dialed in. All of their key next-gen features, all of their key kind of selling points for xCloud, all that stuff is going to be dialed in for the launch of Halo Infinite. Hazador, my man, the mad mod himself, blessing this chat. Thanks for joining us, dude. But yeah, again, like I try to be objective with all of the console stuff, because people are just so awful with it online, as I'm sure all of you've seen. Like, and it's it's not just PlayStation fanboys. There's a lot of Xbox people who are very sensitive about legit criticisms of Xbox. There are a lot of legit. I'm a huge Xbox fan. Like, I prefer Xbox. I mostly play on Xbox. I have a gaming PC, and even when I had my gaming PC, I would, play the arguably worst versions on my Xbox, just because I was a big supporter of the platform. But you can't ignore you can't ignore what somebody else is doing just because you like one platform better. So people get really hurt, people get really sensitive, people get really upset when I point out certain, critiques on either side. But when these companies do something really well, and people support that idea, that forces the other companies to adapt that, or try to have an equivalent, or at least compete. So we should really be challenging these companies to compete. And that's one cool thing about both Xbox and PlayStation doing well right now, is they're pushing new features, they're pushing new tech, they're pushing power, they're pushing services, they're pushing value. So to be the top spot, both of these companies are pulling out a lot of stops to make sure that they are the go-to place, or they have the go-to games, or they have the best services, or they have the best hardware. And we should be stoked about that. So yeah, don't ignore faults. Just because something has a fault does not make it bad either. And that's another thing. Like, if something has a I posted about this on Twitter recently, but the whole Metacritic thing is it's just devolved. It's devolved into the most disgusting, toxic conversations online. The whole obsession with Metacritic. And if a game does not have a 90 Metacritic average, then it is trash. Like, I cannot stand that mentality. I got a lot of heat from people online for saying that Cyberpunk 2077 was a 6.9 game. But in that same comment, I also said it's also some of the most fun I've had with an open world game in a long time. And it's one of the first open world games in a long time I've truly been obsessed with. So the fact that I put that number on it made people angry. Because obviously the 6.9 was a joke. Probably would give it a 7 realistically. But because I put a number on it that wasn't in that threshold, people were upset with me. Even though I said I was having a ton of fun with it, and it was one of the most fun open world games I've played in a long time, you cannot ignore the faults. Because you like something and because you have fun with something does not mean it is free of any sort of faults. And people cannot distinguish between that. They cannot separate themselves from that number. And that number has just devolved the conversation of games into one of the most frustrating things online. Whenever someone screen caps a Metacritic score versus a game I'm talking about, I don't like blocking people unless they're just really awful, but I just have a strong urge to just block them. Like, if you screen cap this game that has a better Metacritic than this game I'm talking about, I just really want to block you. I typically don't, but it's awful. It's such a disgusting, gross, simple conversation around games. You can't you're diminishing all these people's works, all these big ideas, all these nuances with a number. You're taking all these complex little details and you're putting a number on it, and you're deciding that this number means that this is good and this number means this game is not good and no one should play it and it's terrible. And I cannot stand it. It really makes me want to just scream into the void. But yeah, again. Oh, hey, big boy! So yeah, that's kind of where I stand with the whole Metacritic conversation on Twitter, and sadly, it's mostly used for confirmation bias. Like, most people are just using it to say that the game that they like is better than the game you like, and that's all it is. It's not really about them truly respecting or appreciating the craft or the medium. It's about getting confirmation bias for their favorite franchises, basically. So yeah, that's where I stand with Metacritic. I don't know how you guys feel, if you have strong thoughts about the whole Metacritic conversation or not. I mean, inherently Metacritic is not bad. I'm not trying to say that Metacritic is bad. I'm just saying the way that people use Metacritic online is really, really frustrating. Because it's a useful tool to get a kind of gauge of how the community thinks of a game, like what the general consensus is from reviewers on a game. But it's not the end all be all of, if a game does not have a 90, it's absolute trash and no one should ever play it. Okay, now that I beat that boss, let me catch up on the chat here. Mr. Joanna Dark has a poignant statement saying, people should love their platform and play games for themselves and no one else. I don't care about the box. I agree. Again, a lot of this has kind of become a cliche for PlayStation fanboys, quote unquote, to throw around, is that, it's only the games that matter. And realistically, that's what it's all about. That's what everyone's most excited about, is the games. That's what people want to play. Again, if you have a really cool, powerful machine, that's great. That's awesome. But that's not why we buy an Xbox, and that's not why we buy a PlayStation. We don't buy it to be like, oh, this box over here looks sick. It looks awesome. We buy it to play the games. And at the end of the day, that is what is most important. Brent says they should have made Cyberpunk a next-gen exclusive, because the old hardware hurt it all around. It would have sold a lot more new consoles as well, in my opinion. I see where you're coming from. A couple issues there is stock for new consoles is impossible. So they would not have sold more new consoles with Cyberpunk because they have sold all the consoles. Xbox and PlayStation have sold all the consoles that they have available. So it's not really a matter of like not having like the big games. It's just a matter of stock. So Cyberpunk, even though it came out around the time of these new consoles, in my opinion, it's not a deciding factor of like if someone's going to buy a next-gen console. Everyone wants one. People cannot get them. That's why people are reselling PS5s for like $1,000. And also, Cyberpunk was announced before the Xbox One and PS4 released. What Cyberpunk needed to do was delay the game. It sounds like a lot of people internally knew that. A lot of people were pushing for that. But instead of delaying the game, they just put out something that was a mess. Again, I like the game, but it launched in the worst state I've played a game in, and the worst state for a AAA game. People say, "Oh yeah, Skyrim was buggy." Skyrim was buggy, but the amount of bugs that I experienced in Cyberpunk was so much more than Skyrim. Like so much more than Skyrim. I'm talking literally hundreds of bugs. Some of them minor, some of them silly, some of them incredibly frustrating, some of them causing me to die mid-quest and having to restart quests. It was a mess. It wasn't like the performance on old consoles is obviously bad, but that was not the reason the game launched in such a terrible state, because I played that on the Series X. And the console does not determine the bugs. Because even on PC there was just a wide gambit. Binyabik says, some of the best times I've ever had with games that most people gave around a 65 to 78%. I'll use a prime example for me personally. Sea of Thieves is one of my favorite games of all time. Sea of Thieves, in my opinion, is the most important Xbox game of last generation. As we've seen with the huge uptick on Steam, that momentum is carrying into this generation. Sea of Thieves, in my opinion, is one of the most inventive, original ideas in gaming in the last decade. It created an experience that was unlike anything else. For better or worse, some people didn't like that, but it pushed boundaries. It created something new. And its Metacritic average was a 69. A 69 at launch. Yeah, and again, I don't know what... I don't know why people try to... I always end up saying this on every damn episode, but I don't know why people try to suck all the fun out of gaming. Like, I don't know why everyone's obsession becomes like attacking something that somebody else likes. Just like in music and movies, we can have guilty pleasures in gaming too. We can love and play games that aren't necessarily great or masterpieces. Like we can have fun with those, and that's fine. We listen to trash. I used to love me some Limp Bizkit, y'all. I used to get down on some Limp Bizkit. I don't hide it. I say it proudly on this stream right here, right now. Limp Biddy used to get down. Limp Bizkit is objectively a terrible band. So, I don't know. Like in movies and music, that's fine. We can like terrible movies and nobody cares. We can like terrible music and nobody cares. But we can't like games that have a lower than 90 average on Metacritic, according to some assholes, I guess is probably the best way to put it. All right. Sorry, just catching up on chat here. My apologies. It's a one-man show here. Need to have some person off to the side screening the chat for me and whispering the juicy comments in my ears. Dr. Vortex popping in. What's going on? Mr. Joanna Dark says, did you do it all for the cookie? I hope that's a typo. I hope you're a true Limp Bizkit OG who knows it was Nookie, fam. All about that Nookie. I got a cat, I think, banging on the door. It scared me. I was like, oh god, someone's coming for me. Chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water. Yeah, Sergeant Rake, you know what's just terrible. John in the chat still rocking the biscuit. He knows what's good. I love that the chat is just breaking into Limp Bizkit quotes now. Brings a tear to my eye. Oh, I'm so proud. Yeah, this chat's fun. This group of people that we're building and cultivating over here is awesome. Always look forward to just hanging out on Saturdays and chatting with you guys. And I try to keep it pretty interactive. Obviously, we have main topics, but I'm not afraid to branch off and talk about some other things. But yeah, this group is fun for sure. Go up here and smack this boy so he doesn't scorch me. Come on, fam. I am the fire. Ah, oh, you trying to push me? I play. This ain't my first rodeo. This ain't my first rodeo. SMS3 brings up another interesting example of a game that was considered bad at launch, and that's Crackdown 3, which, again, I recognize that game was really bad. When that game came out, I said, this game is definitely a 6 out of 10, but also I'm having a blast with it because it's just dumb, stupid fun. Just open world sandbox, picking up cars, picking up limp bodies, throwing them around. It's stupid. It's a stupid game. Not a good game. Mechanically, it was really limited, but I had a blast with the single player. And we played through the campaign in co-op as well, and it was just simple, dumb fun. Synodex says, to be honest, it's because Xbox got beat bad this gen. Ponies have run rampant, plus media pushing narrative that needs some humbling by Xbox games being great. Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The launch of the Xbox One was awful. And I've talked about this in a previous episode as well, but Xbox burned a lot of bridges and lost a lot of good faith with the launch of the Xbox One. Their whole like, oh, you can just play an Xbox 360 if you want to play that, and the whole like focus on digital only games and game sharing and all these other kind of features that were not. Oops. Demon Souls has. I'm playing Demon Souls on PS5 right now. So Demon Souls has click and left stick to jump. I forget that this has double press B to jump. So now I'm dead. But yeah, so that launch to me, I think, is really what hurt the brand overall this gen. So you had a lot of negative press going into the Xbox One launch. So you had, the diehard Xbox fans. Xbox 360 was huge. People loved 360. And then a lot of that momentum was killed. As we've seen with like overall sales for this generation, was nothing compared to 360. And that's just because that initial launch was so bad that they lost so much goodwill. And then that was coupled by the fact that they were not able to deliver a God of War, like a Last of Us and a God of War, and those kind of massive games that everyone was talking about. Again, I still like Xbox. I loved my Xbox One. I bought a PS4 for Bloodborne and played a couple of the other exclusives, but I didn't play the PS4 all that much. But I'm just saying, from a general standpoint, I get where the criticisms come, and I get why people say that, especially with the last generation, that PlayStation is quote unquote better than Xbox. Because that launch was just so bad. That's gonna be the issues that CD Projekt Red are gonna have to overcome now with their next release. Is that the launch of Cyberpunk 2077 burned so many bridges and lost them so much goodwill that it's going to impact their future projects. It's going to impact their business for years. Again, I've seen some people in the chats, say Cyberpunk ran great for them. Cool, good. That's good to hear. But the reality is it did not run well for a lot of people. And the reality is that it's obvious a ton of features were cut. A lot of basic mechanics were cut from the game due to time. So you can't ignore all that. Even if, like I said, the game's fun. I like the game. It was a lot of fun. Even if you love the game, you cannot ignore all the basic fundamental mechanics that were cut from that game due to getting it out this year. So yeah, CD Projekt Red is going to be in a similar position to where Xbox was. And Xbox has been building momentum. Starting around 2017, you really started to see a shift in the overall kind of narrative around Xbox, and that started to build. They haven't yet released a game that is like, you have to play this yet. Unfortunately, they haven't released a game that, like Nintendo and PlayStation have those games that everyone wants to buy and everyone wants to play. Xbox needs an answer to that. Again, I'm not saying that those games are better, and I'm not saying you can't love the games on an Xbox, because I do. I'm just saying from a general, like, average Joe Schmo, like, Xbox has not nailed that. Oh yeah, Binyabik says hurt is an understatement. Sadly, in Germany, for example, it almost killed the brand. Yeah, in some areas, in some regions, it pretty much tanked Xbox as a brand, and so they suffered because of the Xbox One launch so significantly that the entire generation was damaged because of that. They obviously they weren't selling consoles as well, so they weren't investing in games as much for a period. And then when their games that they were releasing were getting like mediocre and average, they were struggling to sell games because, you know, they just were not investing the money to deliver those big budget games. And so yeah, the launch was terrible. Like, you cannot understate how terrible that launch was for Xbox. So it's refreshing and exciting to see way more effort, way more financial investments, and way more kind of general excitement about this launch than the launch of the Xbox One. So that puts Xbox in a much better position at the start of this gen than the start of last gen. Oh yes, and we can't understate the forced connect. That was, again, making that forced and making the console an extra $100 because of that was, again, they lost the power battle initially, they lost the price battle initially, and they told everyone that you have to use Connect. So yeah, again, we really cannot understate how awful and damaging that launch was. We have 80 peeps. 80 peeps hanging out. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all joining me on this Saturday morning. Let's go ahead and see if we can hit that coveted 5K mark by the end of the stream. Share this out with your aunt, your uncle, I don't know, your boss. Is your boss a gamer? Your boss is a gamer. Go ahead and just smash that like button. El Hamid? Sorry if I'm butchering this. I'm trying. El Hamid says hello. Hello, what's going on? Thanks for hanging out. Will Nelia Burns, do you think Microsoft will buy Techland? I don't think so. No. There's so many. All right, I guess that's a perfect segue into our next bit of this. Our next bit of the show is, it's rumor season, y'all. Nothing but rumors from here on out. I've seen that rumor that Xbox is thinking about buying Techland. I don't think that's on their list. I really don't think we're going to see a ton until the Bethesda deal is fleshed out, finalized, and ready to rock. We're not going to at least hear of any announcements. There's obviously a ton of rumors, and they've made it clear that they are looking at other teams, looking at other developers. I think at this point, like Bethesda showed what they're looking for. Bethesda showed that they are serious about the Xbox brand. They are serious about making Game Pass the definitive way to experience and play games. So that is, I mean, Bethesda is huge. So I think those are the kind of acquisitions that they're looking for. Ones that have established brands, that have established fan bases, that are going to pull people in from, PC or PlayStation to the Xbox ecosystem. So those are the kind of levels that I personally think Xbox is looking at more than something like a Techland. Not to diminish the work that Techland does. I just think that Xbox is looking to make big moves, looking to make huge, massive moves, and they want those headlines. They want Xbox and Game Pass to be the place to play all the best games. And as we've seen with PlayStation, you really need to invest in those studios. You got studios like Naughty Dog, Naughty Dog and Insomniac. Just kind of merge those into one word. Naughty Oak. So that's what Xbox is trying to do. And so that's what we're going to see from a lot of their teams now that have kind of released AA games in the past, like Compulsion and Undead Labs with We Happy Few and State of Decay 2. They're going to be investing in those teams to make sure that their next release is this big deal. And people know those names. And when they see Undead Labs or when they see Compulsion games on a banner or on a logo, they know they should be excited. And they want more studios to have that level of impact. Because when you see a Naughty Dog, when you see a Rockstar, you know what to expect. You know it's going to be a huge game. You know it's going to be a big budget. You know the production's going to be really high. And so those are the things Xbox is investing in. Xbox knows what PlayStation is doing. Xbox is looking at what PlayStation is doing. They're not ignoring that. They understand where PlayStation's success is coming from. And so they are going to be emulating that. Yellow Human Soup, hi from Sweden. Hello. Thanks for hanging out. And again, yeah, I think Binyabik brings up a point about that, the shift will help them potentially sell more consoles unless they are getting outsold really badly. And I think the way they're building their ecosystem and their model is that they are trying to be everywhere and have everyone play. So console sales as a whole aren't the main driver for their success. Game Pass is going to be their main driver for success. And if you get someone subscribed to Game Pass on their phone, even though you don't get the hardware sales, you're getting that money from the Game Pass subscription. Same with PC. And they're going to be, putting that in TVs. We're going to see Xbox Game Pass apps built into TVs. So when someone buys a TV, they see, oh, Xbox Game Pass is built into my Samsung. Cool. Let me boot this up. So you're going to have random people who just have a TV who now sign up for Xbox Game Pass just because of the convenience. And then Sergeant Rake asks, Miles, do you think In Exile is doing something special with their new game? It sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like there's been some kind of rumblings and some talks about their next game being like a big, epic, kind of steampunk-inspired RPG. So Xbox has invested into that studio and has given them some more manpower, and they want to make sure that their next RPG is a big deal as well. So Xbox in the RPG department right now has a ton of big players. And it seems like with Xbox expanding those teams, they really want to make sure that all of their big RPG players are delivering big RPGs. Proginge asks, so who do you think is on that list? I assume this is in regards to acquisitions. And who do I think is on that list? Who do I realistically think is on that list? Or who do I want to be on that list? I can tell you that at different points in history, Capcom has been on that list. And back when Capcom, was not doing as financially well, there was some serious talks of Xbox swooping up Capcom. So I wonder if those conversations have started to recirculate. Capcom games have been a big part of Game Pass. So, for me, I think that would be a huge deal for Xbox. Capcom has a huge catalog of beloved franchises. They have some great studios under their belt as well. They're on a hot streak right now, and that hot streak has probably increased the buying price of Capcom, and is probably the main reason Capcom has not sold, because they've had a bunch of hits back to back, which has made them a hot commodity in the old gaming industry. I also want to know why Phil Spencer went and looked at Elden Ring. There has to be something going on there. Like the way that was brought up is really interesting, because you don't just fly to Japan on a whim during a pandemic and just go look at Elden Ring. Just hey, I'm gonna go check out Elden Ring. I just want to see what it's looking like. There's some partnership that is at least being discussed between FromSoft and Xbox right now. Whether that's like, hey, we want them, they're going to push the marketing rights, or whether it's going to be like some sort of Game Pass deal, or the crazier theory is that Xbox is gauging Elden Ring as like a potential investment metric. Like, hey, like, let's see what this game is, and let's see if, because as much as I love From Software, and as much as From Software is a big deal in the gaming, industry and conversation, their games, their games have not historically sold as incredibly as other kind of beloved franchises. And that's not to devalue what they do. I'm just saying for Microsoft as a business, they probably look at those sort of things and say, hey, like, is Elden Ring going to be more accessible than Dark Souls? Is Elden Ring something we can draw a bunch of people into the Xbox ecosystem with? Yeah, and again, I'm a big FromSoft Souls boy, so take that with a grain of salt, as all the kids on YouTube say. But again, that to me is not just a random thing. There's something, again, it could just be marketing stuff. It could definitely just be a marketing deal, but like I said, you don't fly to Japan during a pandemic on just because. Like, that's not the reality. So there's something that they are working on, whether it's long term, whether it's short term. Something is going on there, in my opinion. Alpha Tay asked, do I play Cyberpunk? Yeah, we actually had a little segment at the beginning talking about Cyberpunk. I beat Cyberpunk. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Was a lot of fun. Was also broken as hell. But again, I've said it earlier, but it is one of the most fun open world games I've played in a while. Just catching up on the old chat here. Benny Big says, don't they have the marketing rights for Elden Ring? They were the ones to announce it. Yeah, I don't know for sure that they have the marketing rights, because we haven't seen anything else yet. We've only seen the initial reveal. So Sekiro was revealed with Xbox, and so was Elden Ring, which again, that's showing this pattern of Xbox getting behind FromSoft games. So again, I don't know for sure that Xbox has the marketing rights, but they were definitely the ones to reveal it at their show. So that doesn't inherently mean that they have the marketing rights when they reveal a game. That's can just be to get some excitement for that game and to get that kind of brand association going. But again, we haven't seen any other marketing material, so I don't know, maybe. Dark Souls. I guess I forgot. Dark Souls 3 was revealed by Xbox as well. Damn, okay. So that's dope. That's really cool, because Dark Souls 3 is probably the best RPG ever made. But that's just my opinion. Dark Souls 3 is an absolute masterpiece. I've been harassing. I don't want to say harassing. That comes off a little crazy. I've been politely adding From Software and Bandai Namco every week on Twitter and asking them when they're gonna update or enhance Dark Souls 3 on Xbox, because Dark Souls 3 on Xbox is 900p at 30 FPS, locked at 30 FPS. So booting up Dark Souls 3 on my Series X crushes my heart. It looks and runs so bad. It sucks. I bought it on PC. I've been like, that's where I play Dark Souls 3 now, because I don't want to be that graphics guy, but also 900p at 30 FPS wasn't a deal breaker for me back in 2015 or 16, I think is when that launched. But now that I have my Series X, it's kind of a deal breaker. Kind of a deal breaker for me. Super chat hype from Mr. Joanna Dark. Does Microsoft need to copy Sony with the type of games that they make? I want to know how games can evolve next gen. How can Microsoft make Sony quality games but push gaming forward? To answer that simply, no. I don't think that Xbox needs to make Sony style games. And I think, a lot of Xbox fans are also kind of unfair when they say that all Sony games are the same. Like, they love the third person kind of narrative driven stuff for sure. But Naughty Dog is one of their biggest players, and that's a Naughty Dog thing more than that's a Sony thing. So I think Xbox fans in particular are a little harsh on that side, because Sony does have a pretty diverse portfolio. They just don't put out many games in general, so it seems like, at least from their first party output, that a lot of them are the same style. I think after listening to Double Fine, after listening to Rare, those teams in particular, they only want to make new things. So they don't, Rare is not going to revisit Banjo. Double Fine doesn't want to revisit any of their stuff. Those teams want to make new games. Those teams want to push new ideas. And I think that's part of the deal. Part of the reason they signed on with Xbox is that the leadership team said, hey, we are going to support you guys. We want to see you guys shine. We want to give you guys the freedom to make these cool, bold, innovative games. And so going forward, I think that's what we're going to see a lot of from Xbox. We're going to see a lot of experimentation. We're going to go back to the OG Xbox era, where they're not afraid to experiment with new ideas, new genres. And Game Pass is going to be the perfect vessel for that. The Game Pass subscriptions are going to be a buffer, so they can take some risks. They can try some new ideas, and they don't have to worry about it selling 5 million copies to be a success. As we've seen with Death Stranding was a bold, wild game. It took a lot of risks. It was really weird in terms of gameplay, and they put a ton of money into not only marketing that, but making it. And that put a ton of pressure on the game to sell really well. That game cost a lot to make, so it had to sell really well. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like it sold insanely well, which sucks, because, whether you like the game or not, the team was trying new things. They were pushing new ideas. They were trying to kind of evolve gaming as a whole. And because of that, I think Sony's going to be more hesitant to sign off on those experimental ideas of that scale, at least, because it did not sell well for them. They have a formula that they know people are going to buy into, and so they're going to invest heavily in those, because those are tried true and they make a ton of money. They sell a ton of copies. But it sucks that, there's a lot of financial pressure for huge budget weird games. I understand that weird games are isolating to some degree. But gaming, especially this last generation, was kind of stagnant with new ideas. It was kind of, we saw it towards the tail end of 360 as well, where people are like, oh, these are the games people like. These are the games that sell well. These are the formulas that work. So everybody was making the same game reskinned. The same formulas, the same ideas were getting put in new zones and new worlds. And I want to get back to the point where we experiment. We take bold risks with big games. Bold risk with, because indie, that's kind of the indie teams have been kind of taking the torch on that, and they've been innovating with unique ideas and unique gameplay mechanics, but it's a small slice, and it's just this small isolated thing, because that's a risk, and so you can't invest that much money in a huge risk. But I think Game Pass is going to be a great vessel for taking risks, pushing new ideas, letting people like Tim Schafer and the team at Rare do what they do best, and that's come up with new ideas. Like I talked about with Sea of Thieves. The reason I love that so much is because it's a new idea. It's such a fresh, cool new idea. It's a new gameplay mechanic, new gameplay loop, new experience. And there was nothing like it. There is nothing like it. So I want to see more of that from Xbox. And I think that'll be a big draw into the platform as well. Miles, do you think the Gears of War games will get the Xbox Series X and S treatment like the Halo Master Chief Collection? I hope so. I mean, at this point, Gears is, I would say, in terms of like marketing at least, Halo Infinite's obviously going to be huge. But for the last several years, since Halo 5 was kind of a dud, Gears arguably was a bigger franchise for Xbox than Halo was, and was a bigger draw than Halo was. So I would love to see that. Because I mean, they did that with Gears 1. They had the Ultimate Edition. And I would love to see some more kind of enhancements to that outside of just simply back compat. But again, a lot of those games look great and are Xbox One X enhanced. So you get those kind of performance enhancements. But I would love to see some official Xbox Series X and S versions of those. Jean-Luc Williams says, I do want Xbox Studios to make third-person RPGs and shooters. Yeah, again, there's, I don't mind first-person. I think first-person stuff in general is pretty immersive and pretty kind of, I'm trying to think of another word outside of immersive. But yeah, I like first-person games. I understand that not everyone likes them as much. My wife is a prime example. She's not a huge gamer, quote unquote, but she prefers third person, and I think a lot of people do. Because with first person, you lose depth perception, you lose certain things that third person games deliver. So I'm wondering what Xbox's answer to third person stuff is going to be outside of like Hellblade 2, which we know is going to be a big third person game for them. Yeah, Ninja Gaiden is another franchise that's been coming up a lot. There's been some, I don't know, a lot of speculation, a lot of discussion regarding that franchise and its history with Xbox. It would be cool. It'd be really cool to see that come back. Those games are really fun. I wonder how they would be received now. Like, would that be a draw? Would that be a draw to Xbox as a platform? Obviously, it's got a cult following at this point. But is that enough to get somebody who doesn't have an Xbox or doesn't have Game Pass to sign up for Game Pass? I don't know. And that's kind of, I think Xbox's big focus right now is figuring out what games, what franchises will do that for them. Obviously, they knew that would be the case with Bethesda. They knew getting Bethesda would give them a huge suite of games that people would 100% buy an Xbox for or sign up for Game Pass for. But yeah, I guess I'll kind of open it up here and ask you guys what I guess bigger studios do you guys see? I've seen some people mention Ubisoft. I've seen some people mention EA. There's all those rumors that Uplay is going to be added into Game Pass. I think that's totally possible. I mean, Aaron Greenberg has come out and said that they are open to adding like kind of like additional tiers to Game Pass as well. So I could see other services getting bundled into that for an additional price. I wonder if Uplay is going to be included with the price, or if that's going to be their first experiment into, for an extra $5 a month, you can get all of the Uplay, all of Ubisoft's games in Uplay as well. Because yeah, Ubisoft, I mean, they're big. They're definitely one of the bigger publishers. You can kind of say what you will about their releases in terms of, quality or repetition, but they get franchises like Assassin's Creed are super important to a ton of people. Watch Dogs, I don't think is there yet. I don't think Watch Dogs is as big as they want it to be. But I mean, you have Splinter Cell, which has been dead for a while, but that holds a lot of weight for a lot of people. So Ubisoft does have a really good catalog of IPs that they could add to the value of Game Pass for sure. Shield boy. Hey, Shield boy. Binyabik says Sega and Atlas would be my dream for all those JRPGs and strange Japanese games. Yeah, that's another reason I think Xbox is probably looking very seriously at companies like Capcom, From Software. Sega would be big. They they want to gain ground in Japan, and kind of interestingly enough, it seems like Sony is losing a little bit of ground in Japan. There was like this interesting article I was reading talking about how the launch of the PS5 in Japan specifically has not been as big as previous PlayStation launches, because PlayStation has been catering very hard to the West when it comes to their first party studios, titles, games, style, which apparently has hurt the launch of the PS5 a little bit in Japan. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and that would make Xbox's efforts to push into Japan right now a lot more like valuable. I wonder if that. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Sip it down. Buddy. Buddy. Jay Corden says, I love the Lost Planet games. I think they could do an incredible one these days. I did too. You know what? Lost Planet 2 was not reviewed well at all, but that was one of my favorite co-op games on Xbox 360. Really perfect Capcom, really silly, really over the top. You could dress up as Wesker or Frank West or all these iconic characters. They even had the crossover, so you could be like Marcus and Dom in Lost Planet. So there was this awesome like synergy between Capcom and Xbox, and yeah, Lost Planet was a great franchise, and then they just didn't know what to do with it because Lost Planet 2 was not reviewed well. They did Lost Planet 3, which branched off completely from the first two, and then just didn't sell well. I think it was maybe reviewed better slightly than Lost Planet 2 was, but it didn't sell well because it pretty much alienated anyone who liked Lost Planet 1 and 2. Oh no. Oh god. Oh no. 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 Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting, journey for Xbox as a company, as a brand. It's crazy how strong they focused on Japan with the launch of the original Xbox. From Software was involved, Sega was involved. You had all these iconic, huge, crucial players in the Japanese gaming industry involved with Xbox games. And then that faded away really hard after the initial launch of the 360. When they started seeing success from a lot of their Western teams, they focused more on the West, and that lost a lot of their Japanese support. And then into Xbox One, that carried over, and they did not have a ton of support or sales, unfortunately, from Japanese games because of that. Jay Corden asked, "Do you think we could see a Rise 2?" Maybe. I don't think so though. It would be cool. I thought Rise was an interesting game and delivered on some really cool areas, but Crytek seems like they're struggling. I don't really know what's going on with that company right now. They have Hunt. Hunt is their big game right now. Hunt the Showdown, which seems to be kind of met with mixed responses. I personally thought it was an interesting idea that doesn't fully deliver, kind of similar to Evolve, in my opinion, where it's got this asymmetrical multiplayer component and this really cool world with really interesting creatures, but the gameplay loop just doesn't hit for me personally. And judging by the sales response and judging by the overall response from the community and player count, it seems like that's kind of a weird position for them. I know they've struggled financially in the past, so I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with Crytek. I don't see a Rise 2 in the future, but maybe. I'm a big horror guy. I'm a big horror fan, so Bloober Team for me would be huge. I would love to see Bloober Team get scooped up, and again, because they're one of those teams that has amazing ideas. amazing ideas that are typically plagued with technical issues, unfortunately. Just they're a smaller team, but they're pushing some really innovative ideas, like the Medium. Like that is a really great innovative idea. And if you take that team with those ideas and you give them the means and resources to create a big budget, great game, I think we could see some amazing horror titles from Bloober Team. I'm hoping the Medium kind of gets their name out there a little bit more, and I'm wondering if the Medium is kind of like a test again for Xbox in terms of like we're going to launch this into Game Pass. We're going to see what the reception is. If people are excited about this, if people are talking about this, I wonder if that's kind of a deciding factor for Xbox when it comes to acquisition, because the conversations have been out there that, you know, they are looking to sell. They are looking for something to scoop up and give them that support. Go up here, kill these guys so I don't get shot in the boot, hey? Grudge Evo says, I bet we see a new Banjo game before 2025. Yeah, I'd sign off on that. I don't know who's going to make it, though. That's the interesting thing. Tim Schafer was recently asked if Double Fine's going to do a new Banjo. And he had kind of a, not a snotty, but like a kind of funny remark about that. He's like, I don't know, have you heard of this game company called Rare? I think they'd be the ones to do a new Banjo before we would. So it doesn't sound like Double Fine, like as funny and ridiculous as that would be, has any interest whatsoever in doing a Banjo game. So Xbox would have to find somebody within their team or find a third-party dev to step up and kind of do a second-party partnership and develop the game for Xbox Game Studios' publishing arm. Oh no! But yeah, if you look at like the exclusives on the Japanese side from Xbox in the 360 era, there were a ton. And the OG Xbox as well. And then this gen, or the Xbox One gen, that was lost. A lot of that was really lost, and it kind of sucks. And then yeah, like I talked about earlier, Rare and Double Fine do not want to revisit old things. They want to make new games. Rare does not want to make Banjo, is what it comes down to. And I don't think anyone feels comfortable. Oh, you bastard. I don't think anyone feels comfortable like taking up that mantle. With how long it's been since a Banjo game was made, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations set with that. So yeah, it's interesting. They have that IP, people love it. Obviously with Smash Bros, there's a little more excitement and interest in that IP. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably gonna get killed here like a fool. But yeah, I want Banjo to happen for the fans. I'm kind of lukewarm on Banjo. I was never that big into the franchise, but I know it means a lot to a lot of people. So just for the sake of the fans, I really want to see that happen. But again, we're in this weird situation where Xbox doesn't know who's going to make that. They understand that people want a Banjo. They really do. But again, they don't know who's going to make it. Because Rare doesn't want to. No! Damn it. I died, son of a bitch. And Jay Corden brings up an interesting question about a franchise close to my heart. How come Dead Rising is dead these days? It was huge in the 360. Dead Rising was the reason I bought a 360. I remember going to a friend's house who bought the 360 at launch, and he was just hyping up Dead Rising. He's like, it's crazy. There's so many zombies on the screen. It's insane. And so, like, I remember going and playing Dead Rising 1, and then the next weekend going out and getting a 360 and Dead Rising. So Dead Rising was the first 360 game I ever owned. I love Dead Rising. I have an interesting story about, and I need to find the link. I've brought this up before, but there's a really interesting kind of YouTube documentary type thing that talks about the horrible development of Dead Rising 4. Dead Rising 4 is the reason Dead Rising died. they had this big plan for Dead Rising 4 and Dead Rising 5. And so they had two teams. They had a team working on Dead Rising 4, and they had a team working on Dead Rising 5, kind of in tandem. And so their vision for Dead Rising 4 was to be a little darker, still keep some of the humor, but to be like grittier and more brutal. And they wanted to basically, they had some big, bold ideas to change up the formula of the game. And so they had a lot of concepts. They had a lot of the engine designed around this, and they had all these really cool ideas. And then they showed that to Capcom, and Capcom said that it wasn't campy enough. It wasn't Dead Rising enough for what they wanted. So Capcom was not really actively involved, but they were giving the final sign off on what the project was. And so after that, a lot of the team left. A lot of the Dead Rising 4 team left after their ideas and their concepts and their basically fundamental ideas for Dead Rising 4 were scrapped. And like I said, Dead Rising 4 and 5 were in development in tandem around the same time. So a lot of those ideas from Dead Rising 4 were being concept and prepped for Dead Rising 5. And so once all those ideas were scrapped, Dead Rising 5 was scrapped, and basically a new team had to come in and make Dead Rising 4 in, I think it was like an 8 or 10 month development, like a turnaround. With what they had kind of like designed engine-wise, they had to basically make this game in like 8 to 10 months. Which it shows. Dead Rising 4 is not a bad game. Like, I had fun with it. Pretty simple, pretty basic, but you can tell that it did not get the same polish and love that the other Dead Risings got. And because of that, it made, the people passionate about the Dead Rising franchise not want to work with Capcom. Capcom was not invested in the franchise, but they were being restrictive with what the franchise could be. And so that turned a lot of people off. And because of that, it's just dead. It's just completely dead. Dead Rising 4 and the development of that killed Dead Rising as a franchise. I hope we get a reboot. I would love to see a reboot. I'd love to see a team come in, especially now that Xbox Game Studios is so big, and make a just awesome, polished, incredible, over-the-top Dead Rising game. But Dead Rising 4, yeah, sadly just brutally killed that franchise. That's a little fun tidbit about the Dead Rising series. After previewing the medium, do you think Bloober Team learned a lot from their previous games? Do you see this as this developer taking that next step to finally give us a nice horror game? I honestly am a big fan. If you haven't played Observer and The Blair Witch are both really great horror games. Layers of Fear 1 is not good in my opinion. Layers of Fear 2 is pretty great though. So those three games are worth checking out if you're a horror fan, if you're looking to get an idea of like a before and after with Bloober Team. But as I've talked about before, you could tell they were a smaller team with those projects. They weren't free of any issues, or they had some pretty serious bugs in some cases. I remember playing The Blair Witch, and during one of the most emotional cutscenes, it's a first-person game, context there. During one of the most emotional cutscenes, my camera zoomed out really far, and it's supposed to be in first-person perspective, but instead of being in first person, it's super far out. I'm seeing my character glitch around the screen completely headless. I have no head. And there's this epic emotional dialogue sequence happening where he's on the phone talking to his wife, and it's this big climax in the game. And I'm just like watching my character glitch around the screen headless, which kind of killed the moment, I must say. So the games have been they've met with a lot of criticism in those areas because of that. It seems like the medium is a step in the right direction. The voice acting in the game is incredible. They have Troy Baker in the game as well to kind of get a little star power. So Troy Baker plays kind of the enemy, I guess, of the main enemy of the game is Troy Baker. And they have the composer of Silent Hill involved. So there's a lot of names attached to this, and they're trying to use that to kind of push Bloober Team and push what they do. It's still not a big budget game though. People really need to know that. It's launching into Game Pass, but it's not a big budget game. So it's not going to be your Last of Us level quality or anything like that. That being said, the game looks incredible. Graphically, there's a lot of really cool details. Voice acting's phenomenal. Music obviously is incredible. There's a lot going for that game. the art team, the writing team. They've all put in a ton of work to make sure that that's like the best game that they've ever made. And they are very talking to that team. They are super, super confident that this is by far the best game that they've made. So that's cool. That's really cool to see. Like sitting down with them and talking about it, they're super excited. And not only are they super excited, but they're super confident, which is huge. And that says a lot about how they feel about the release of this. Sergeant Rake says, I'm super looking forward to Back 4 Blood. Should be a great multiplat. Yes, Back 4 Blood is one of my most anticipated games of this year. I played the alpha a bit and got an invite to that, and it is what I wanted from a Left 4 Dead sequel. So this is honestly better than what I would have expected Left 4 Dead 3 to be. Like I've talked about with friends, like what would Left 4 Dead 3 even be? Like what would this game look like? What would it be? And Back 4 Blood managed to pull it off. So they took the core fundamental idea of the Left 4 Dead formula and they turned it into like a progressive kind of roguelike. So you have this card system, which not only changes up your abilities each playthrough, but it changes up the enemies that'll spawn, the weather effects, like the poison. So there's a lot of cool modifiers that really emphasize the replayability, which was always one of the most special things about Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 was that replayability. Gokir Ibn Lassan asks, Miles, how likely is it that Xbox will make it possible to use full Windows on Xbox? Natively, I think there's a 0% chance. Just because they want to keep the Xbox Dash platform just unified across the board. So you can set it up. It's a PC more or less, so you can go in and mod that if that's something you want to do. But no, I don't think they're going to have a full-on Windows OS in the Xbox ever, unfortunately. Mohammed says the Blair Witch's ending was way too long. It was long. It was definitely long. It went on for a while. It was pretty epic at points and kind of dragged a little bit. I thought the final conclusion was pretty satisfying, but yeah. Binyabik says The Last Dead Rising was a joke. Yeah, compared to Dead Rising 1 through 3, Dead Rising 2 for me was the pinnacle. Dead Rising 3 was kind of a step down in my opinion. Still fun. Obviously, they were trying some new things, but yeah, for such a cool, beloved franchise to end with Dead Rising 4, I really hope there's a comeback because I don't want Dead Rising 4 to be everyone's last memory of the Dead Rising franchise because if... Faisal says, I think if they get proper funding, they will make a great game. The medium is a step towards that. I guess to see if Microsoft will invest more in the future. That's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what I think Xbox is doing with the medium. Is they're trying to be like, okay, what this is obviously a bigger project for them. This is more in line with what they want to be. Talking to them, they had the dual world mechanic of the medium for a while, like several years. They had that idea. But they just said they could not make it work on the hardware. So hardware limitations kept them from doing this idea for a long time. And then they were talking to, Xbox ahead of launch about what the hardware was going to be for the Series X. And that's when they kind of were able to comfortably commit to development. Because they didn't really have an interest in doing a PC only release, and they probably could have pulled it off PC only, but they really wanted the console hardware and the general hardware to be on a level where they could deliver this. And so they felt comfortable with the Series X and S that they could deliver this vision. And so because of those hardware advancements, they were actually able to take this idea that they had for a long time and execute it. So I'm curious to see what the final project on that looks like. Got registered for a review code, so I'm hoping to lock that down. I'm gonna try to demand a Series X or Xbox code. I'll let you guys know for sure what that ends up looking like. I'll be very transparent if I get a PC code, because again, this is the first true Xbox Series X and S launch title. So I'm gonna more or less, where I can, demand an Xbox code. People want to know what this is going to run like on Xbox. That's the biggest question. People, I'm sure, are interested to see what it runs like on PC, but the burning question is going to be, how does this run on Xbox? So that's going to be hopefully something that I can factor into the review for that. John Stevens, my boy, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. Sartok says I enjoyed both Days Gone and State of Decay 2. Looking forward to State of Decay 3. Me too. State of Decay 2 was a lot of fun. Was a huge step up. People give State of Decay 2 some crap for being janky and buggy and kind of ugly. But that game has had a huge glow up. They've made a ton of improvements to not only the graphics, but the mechanics of the game. And if you go back and play State of Decay 1, do that. If you're one of those people who's been harsh on State of Decay 2, go play State of Decay 1. It's in Game Pass. And then boot up State of Decay 2 and look at the jump. Look at the jump between State of Decay 1 and State of Decay 2. And Matt Booty has said that they are going to make sure that Undead Labs and State of Decay 3 gets all the support it needs to be a huge game. So I'm imagining the jump from State of Decay 2 to State of Decay 3 is going to be even more significant. And I'm stoked because the fundamental concept, the engine is really cool. I want to see them expand it, flesh it out. And I want to see, I want to see a big budget State of Decay 3 game. Even though State of Decay 2 was published by Xbox, it was not a big budget game. It was a AA game at best. Definitely still made by an indie team, published by Xbox. State of Decay 3 is going to be our first, quote unquote, AAA State of Decay game. So here's to hoping that absolutely crushes. John Steven says, I've still not been able to get my hands on a Series X. It's tough. Nobody can get a console. We were talking about that early on. I've seen some people say, with the Cyberpunk thing, oh, if you play it on a next-gen console, it's not that bad. Cool. But even if you want a next-gen console, chances are you're going to struggle to get one. For a lot of people, it's impossible. Like I said, it took me over an hour of actively smashing buttons on Best Buy's website to get a PS5 digital edition. Most people either don't know to commit or won't commit to that. So it's tough. It's not as simple as I'm just going to go to the store and get a Series X. I'm going to go to the store and get a PS5. These companies are desperately trying to make as many consoles as they can, as fast as they can, and to try to kind of meet those demands. And it's tough. It's a tough time. Everyone's at home. Everyone's playing games. With Xbox in particular, they have these brand new chipsets in place, so they had to wait for those chipsets to get to the point where they could be developed because they are launching with brand new hardware. I've heard reports of the PS5 having different fans internally because they're trying to just meet the demand. So their fan manufacturer was out of the fan that they needed, so they had to hire somebody else to come in and make a fan that was comparable. And it's just it's wild. It's wild to get a new console right now. Faisal asked, do you think Tango Games Studio will make a bigger game since Microsoft acquired Bethesda? Would be Evil Within 3 or something bigger? I would love that. Tango Gameworks has done some really cool stuff with horror. Again, I'm a huge horror nerd. I think I've made that pretty clear in my Twitter account, what I talk about on the stream. I know horror's niche in general, so I know not everyone's as amped on horror stuff. Shinji Mikami has said that he doesn't really have any interest in making a new game, which makes me feel like we might never see an Evil Within 3, or it might be a while. They would have to find a new creative lead for the Evil Within, because it sounds like he's kind of, I don't know, burnt out or jaded on the industry or whatever the case is. He's not really interested in doing another game. So with him being the creative lead for that, I don't think it'll be Evil Within 3, but maybe it'll be a new Ghostwire Tokyo. What is it Ghost? Why am I blanking on what their name is? Hold on. Somebody tell me the name of that spooky game. Is it Ghostwire Tokyo? Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. Their spooky game. Their spooky supernatural game. I think we might just see another series of new IP. Mr. Joanna Dark asks, Miles, would you be my Dark Souls life coach? Absolutely. Follow me on Twitter at Miles Dompier. And yeah, if you have any questions about Dark Souls ever, I will talk about Dark Souls all day, every day. I never get tired of talking about Dark Souls. So I know not everyone has that same level of interest, so I'm not going to just dive headfirst into only Dark Souls here, but on Twitter, I'll humor any Dark Souls question. Any day of the week. Let's go. Ghostwire Tokyo. Okay. I was right. I wasn't insane. It seemed right, but then I don't know. Okay, Sabine here brings up an interesting question. Part of the whole rumor circuit that we briefly discussed. Did you see the new patent for a new console from Xbox? They think it'll launch at the end of this year with Starfield and Halo. I don't know that that's going to be a new console. Are we talking about the Xbox? Are we talking about the Xbox Series XS? Is that the patent that we're talking about? I wonder if the patent for that is simply just to lock down the name, that naming convention. Because I can't imagine that Xbox is going to come out with a console called the Xbox Series XS. But maybe, who knows? It would be really weird to have an Xbox Series X, an Xbox Series S, and an Xbox Series XS all exist at the same time. It's confusing. There was the arguments that the Xbox Series X and S initially were confusing. I didn't really feel that same way. I thought it was pretty straightforward, and they're gonna just do the phone naming convention going forward. So we'll have the X2 or the S2. So we'll have the Series X2, or it might just even be the Xbox X2 moving forward and the Xbox S2. But are they really going to merge them together and have an XS? What does that even mean? Is the S implying that it's digital only? Or I don't know. I really don't know. I would be totally fine, and I totally think they should do a Series X that's a digital only to match that PS5 digital only. And that's kind of what some people are speculating. I can't imagine a world where they call it the XS. It seems really dumb. To put it blatantly, it seems really, really dumb that you would have the Xbox Series X, Series S, and the Series XS all out at the same time. I don't know. Maybe they're patenting a Slim already for down the road. I don't know. Faisal says, super chat hype, by the way. So I'm from Qatar. Consoles are over available there. It seems Microsoft seems to get a lot of horror games this gen. Also, did you play Huntdown? Yes, Microsoft is focusing on horror, which is, let's go. More spooky games all the way. And I haven't played Huntdown yet. I almost bought it on sale. It was like 50% off a couple weeks ago, and I was just a pinch this close from buying it, but I didn't. But that's good. So you said they're over available there. Okay, good. That's good. At least some region has consoles in stock. Hazador Gaming says people make up stupid stuff. Well, yeah, I get really tired of rumors, and that's why we don't cover a lot of rumors on our YouTube channel. Is because a lot of them are just nonsense. A lot of them are just a waste of everyone's time and energy. They're fun. I'll participate in rumors on Twitter, and I'll dive in and dabble, but I'm not going to cover some just unfounded trap. Like there are so many patents that we see that are never used for anything ever. People assume that anytime a patent is made, that there's 100%, it's in production. Patent's made because it's coming out in 6 months. That's not how patents work at all. Patents just protect the idea. So if you have an idea that, maybe we can do, maybe this is something we'll do down the road, let's lock it down. And that's what I think all this is. I don't think we're going to have a Series XS. But again, I could see a digital-only console coming down the pipeline. Maybe not this year, potentially, but probably the next year if they want to compete with PlayStation. But realistically, you have the Series S, which is cheaper than PlayStation, and you have the Series X, which is more powerful and more expensive. So they're already kind of competing where they need to be. But I could see a digital-only version coming down the pipeline at some point. Yeah, PS5 is as lame and boring as their, PlayStation's naming convention is, just counting. It works. It gets the job done. PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5. Not confusing at all. Simple. It's people can count. Once we get past 10, it might get confusing for some people, but people can count. And I think that's what Xbox is trying to do with the Series X and S, is they're going to have iterations of that similar to a phone, is what I imagine. So we're going to have the X2, the S2, or at least if they were smart, that's what they would do. So they use this generation to start a clean slate. So you have the X series of Xbox, you have the S series of Xbox, and now from here you can go, I hope they don't go cringy, and we have the Series XL. or the Series Double X, or just cringy stuff like that. But if you just do an X2, the X2, like a phone, like, oh, the X2, this is the more premium Xbox console, the new one. The S2, oh, this is the cheaper, more affordable new Xbox, the S2. It's boring. Sure, it's boring, but it gets the job done. It gets the message across. That's why all the major tech companies, Samsung, Apple, they just count. PlayStation, they just count. It's easy. Everyone gets it. Nelia Burns asks, what do you think would happen if Microsoft bought Rockstar and Take-Two? I don't think they would. I think the asking price for those companies is astronomical. It would be more obscene than what Bethesda is. And I don't know what would happen. I don't know. People would be salty. You'd have a lot of salty comments for sure. But again, I don't know if it's worth the asking price. Obviously, you get Grand Theft Auto, which is arguably the biggest gaming franchise ever. That franchise prints money, so the value there is huge. But the asking price of all of that is probably more money and more decimals than we've seen in a gaming acquisition. Synodex asks an interesting question here. What do you think Xbox lacks in game genres? I think they lack meaningful platformers, is a huge one. Some people try to write off platformers, but platformers are huge when it comes to general accessibility for kids, families. Like having that pull, that drive, you're going to have more parents and families willing to invest in an Xbox if they know that there's a big kind of iconic platformer. So that, in my opinion, is a huge category that Xbox is just failing in. I also think they are failing in Japanese games across the board. JRPGs are niche, realistically. I don't think they're really struggling too hard in JRPGs because even the most beloved JRPGs now don't sell incredibly well. So I don't know if that's necessarily a category that they're missing on. I would love to see more. I would love to see all Square releases launch on Xbox, and I want it to be this like pick and choose thing with the bigger ones. But Japanese games in general, I would love to see more from them. But realistically, I think especially now, their bases are pretty covered when it comes to a good spread, like a good diverse portfolio. Obviously racing, shooters, RPGs, simulators, flight simulator. So they have a good spread, but platformers, that's one area they're desperately struggling. Horror games, they're going to be crushing it. They're going to be the king of horror games and RPGs here pretty quick. Mr. Joanna Dark says, bring Blinks the cat back. Yes, let's go. People clown on Blinks, but Blinks was a legend. Voodoo Vince and Blinks for 2021. Let's go. Phantom Dust 2021. Let's go. Phil Spencer, call me. Let's make it happen. Let's do this thing. Let's light this candle. Let's make 2021 the year that obscure Xbox franchises come back from the dead. Farrell Ronald, yo, welcome. All right, well, we got probably, I'll hang out for another 5-ish minutes here, but I'm gonna just kind of open up the end of this here to any general questions you have for me, any comments, concerns about the podcast itself, moving forward, what you want to see. Yeah, just general questions. Thanks to everyone who hung out. Thanks to everyone who subbed, likes, the super chats, all the channel members. Y'all are the GOATs. Y'all the MVPs. And again, it feels good to be back. We took a few weeks off, but I'm excited to get back in the swing of doing this every Saturday. If you're watching after the fact and you want to tune in live, feel free to join us Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So morning for me, 10 a.m. Denver time. And yeah, again, thanks to all the support, all the people hanging out. It's really cool to be able to do this and chat with everyone. So I try to chat with as many people as I can and play the game and moderate. So, it's just a one-man show over here, but we're making it work. Randall Thor is an insider. Sorry, mate. I have my sources. It's 2025. Damn. Okay. Mr. Joanna Dark Miles, I have the title for the next Blinks. Blinks 3, A Furry in Time. Oh, God. Faisal asks, how is your shoulder? Oh, I actually do have a fun update on my shoulder. I'm going in on the 21st to have some more surgery. Yeah, so my collarbone is healing well, but I guess at the edge here, where the end of my metal plate is at, there's a screw that's poking into my AC joint. So it's pretty much, it hurts constantly. It's not like an extreme pain, but it's like this constant dull pain. So they're cutting me open again on the 21st and pulling out one of the screws. So I guess thankfully it'll be a pretty simple, easy procedure. They said it'll take about 15 minutes. But yeah, your boy's going back under the knife. Let's go. Mr. Joanna Dark says, Miles would love to see a spoiler cast type show added where we can all discuss a specific game. That might be kind of fun. Maybe try to track down a panel like with some upcoming games and get a few people involved and we can just kind of talk about the game as a whole. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll look into that. See what games we can line up for that. Randall Thor 19 is an insider. Xbox Series will get a refresh every 5 years. That's the plan. What are your sources, Randall Thor is an insider? Yeah, I could see there's definitely be more frequent refreshes this generation than previous generations. I don't know if it'll be. I personally think 5 years is too long. I think maybe on paper that was the original thought, but I think 5 years is on the border of too long with the way technology is advancing. But consoles, are a little bit slower to adapt, but I think them being nimble and them having the Xbox All Access program makes upgrading more of a viable option for a lot of people, more frequently at least. Big Boss. Randall Thor 19 is an insider, says Big Boss. Okay. So he's got a trust me bro source. Is that a trust me bro source? Email me your home address so I can verify your identity and verify your content. Yeah, I'm honestly thinking like the way, like we talked about, they're building this system to be more in line with mobile phones. So I think 3 years could be realistic. I could think that's definitely a realistic refresh window. Keeps them agile, keeps them nimble, keeps them in line with PC. So that way, when you have PC developers making their games, they don't have to scale as brutally for certain releases. And then eventually, you'll have a little tag on your game in the store that says supports Xbox Series X, Xbox Series X2, Xbox Series X3, or only supports Xbox Series. People understand. People like kind of minimize what people can wrap their minds around. We all buy phones. We all buy new phones. We understand the features that come with new phones, so we can wrap our minds around the features that come with a console and a console refresh. But Sergeant Rake says, you, Dealer, Jez, and Rand for an anniversary show would be the dream team. That'd be a good show. We've had a Dealer on the show. We've had Colt. Obviously, we've had Jez. Rand, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Rand. He won't commit to a date, so for now he's dead to me. We'll see. We'll see. I've been trying to get him on this show, but he just will not commit to a date. So I don't know. Rand, if you're watching, what's up, bro? You scared? You scared to get in the ring and talk about Nintendo with me? Let's go, boy. You and me in the Thunderdome, laying it down. Brandon and I have this fake feud going on online now, so we're gonna have to make the Rand special a pay-per-view event. The gauntlet's being thrown down. Grudge Evo asks, why do you think people are so hyped for 12 minutes? I think it's, in my opinion, it looks like a really cool narrative experience. I imagine it's going to be really short, but this whole time loop mechanic and the idea that you're trying to have this small window of essentially 12 minutes play out in these different, you can see it play out in all these different ways, is going to be a really cool game experience. I don't know if the gameplay is going to be super exciting, but I feel like the overall kind of loop is going to be really satisfying and play out in some really cool ways. And now that you got my boy Willem Dafoe in the mix, yeah, there's some reason to be hyped. There's some reason to get pumped up. But yeah, no. So working on getting some devs on the show as well. So that's another big focus for me going into 2021 is I want to get more developers in here with me to talk about not only their games, but just games in general, and get some more inside perspective and put some names to faces and get some real insight, so we don't have to deal with all of the armchair devs on Twitter. I think that'll be fun. Mr. Joanna Dark says Miles with the cyborg arm takes down Randall Thor with a clothesline. No, Randall Thor, I think if I remember right, it's like based on a book series. It's like the author of a book series or the character in a book series. His name is not Rand. Randall Thor is not his real name. I don't know if I broke the illusion. I think he said that on a podcast publicly, but his name is not Rand in IRL. It's some fantasy book thing, if I remember right. Synodex says Rand is scared of the Nintendo slander. Rand is scared to just debate me. He's scared of this big brain coming at him with some hot logic. Because he's one of those Xbox guys who says that Nintendo is trash, and that's small brain. That's just know that I like Rand. It's just fun to tease. That's all. This isn't personal, so please don't clip this out of context and make it seem like I'm coming after Rand. Because I know that's gonna happen. But yeah, I will debate anyone who says Nintendo's trash. Debate them into the ground. I will debate anyone who says Xbox is trash into the ground. I will debate anyone who says PlayStation is trash. Let's go. I ain't afraid. That'll be my news. That'll be the podcast, is me just debating, arguing with people about the fanboy logic. How's that for a series? Roberto says, I thought he was called Randall Thor. Randall, my boy Randall Thor. Rand Al Thor. Again, I don't really know the full origin, but it's some nerdy book thing. Nerd. Again, just teasing, just having some fun. But yeah, no. Again, I'm gonna wrap it up here. But huge thanks to everyone who hung out. Again, if you're new, hang out. We're here every Saturday hanging out. As you can see, we got a pretty rad crew of people joining us, getting down on the chat. We make this pretty interactive. Again, I don't typically try to make super chats mandatory to ask questions. As you've seen, I'll field any ones I see that are interesting. Obviously, if you're a member, it's easier for me to see as I'm playing the game, as I'm screening the chat. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to ignore anyone's questions if I don't get to them. I'm just fielding what I can. As I said, it's a one-man show. But put my Twitter handle in the chat there, at Miles Dompier at Twitter, if you want to follow me, if you want to ping me. And that's about it. I think that's it. Thanks for hanging out for the first episode of Xbox Chaturdays of 2021. I appreciate you. I love you. Have a fantastic week. And I'll catch you all next weekend. Take care, everybody.